there. How are you? I'm echoing. Welcome to this new social live. So I got a question for you. What is synchronicity to you? If I say that word, synchronicity, what is it? What comes up for you when I say that word? It's really fascinating because I think a lot of us, if we were to sit in a room and describe what synchronicity means to each of us, we might end up discovering that we have different views of what it actually is. Some of you might say, well, it's this thing called the law of attraction, or it's happenstance, or it's when things just fall into alignment at the right place, right time. It's when you maybe even, get into that parking spot and it's because someone just left minutes before, seconds before in a packed parking lot. There's a lot of different ways that you may associate and think about synchronicity. So what I want to do in this new video is I want to go deep into what I have learned synchronicity to be, which really requires that we reinvent the entire wheel around synchronicity. Now, if you're someone who has studied the work of Carl Jung, you'll know that it was really him that first came up with this word. He coined the term in 1930, synchronicity, and it was based out of him seeing what he called a causal parallelism with things happening in life, meaning it wasn't that one thing caused the other to happen. Rather, they happened at the same time with a connection of meaning. So it wasn't causal from his point of view. Interestingly enough, in my work the last 20 years, what I've learned is that it actually is causal. It's just that I think Carl Jung was only able to see so much through the lenses he was looking through at his time. So what I'm going to do with you is I'm going to guide you into something new in this social live. It's called intentional synchronicity. Now, if I were to give you a real robust definition of synchronicity, I would say that it's a psychic law first identified by Carl Jung that is a powerful force which moves through all of our lives, and it seemingly seems to order dimensional alignments, opportunities, doors opening, things falling into place, intuitive guidance, wake-up calls. Sometimes it also aligns doors shutting. And it's interesting when it comes to synchronicity, we oftentimes only think about it from a positive viewpoint. But can it also be the reverse? That it could, in fact, absolutely be a synchronicity that you get a no instead of a yes from the universe. So I want to take you in deep. And where this comes from, by the way, I want to just let you know, the last, June, July, August, September, October. Wow, last 6 months, I've been teaching a masterclass called Intentional Synchronicity. We're 24 hours, 11 lessons in. And what I'm doing here is bringing some of the insights from behind my membership's curtain to let you in on some things that we're doing there. One, it's just going to be really incredible content for you to take in and just get value out of, and hopefully inspire some new thoughts, some new perspectives, and a new relationship with synchronicity in your life. But two, this is the only time every year that the doors of my membership open. So if this starts to rock your world, what we do over the next hour, I would just encourage you to come join my membership. The doors only open once a year, and you can get into this massive masterclass for as little as $20 a month. So I'll come back to that a little bit later on. But I want to just continue here with just in terms of just sharing with you what synchronicity has become to me, what I've discovered it to mean. And I'm still learning. This is something, by the way, I've been studying since I was 19. So I am 49. That's 30 years of me and this psychic force, this law, studying it through thousands and thousands of intuitive readings, and also working with one of my favorite tools of synchronicity, astrology. Now, what I've discovered is that essentially, I'm going to break this down a little more simplistically than it really is, but just to get you into the arena of how dynamic this law is. There's two, if you will, forces or types of synchronicity or categories of synchronicity that I've seen primarily move through life. One I call the synchronicity of fate. This is just forces at a cosmic level of order that move around co-creatively with us, but also with everything in such a way that the alignments that happen here are bigger than you and me. The things that line up or fall into place are bigger than you and me. We're not generating personally from our power anything to cause these alignments or these synchronicities to happen. They're bigger than our power. They're bigger than our agenda. They're bigger than our wishes. So one obvious one would be, okay, well, every day we experience a synchronicity of the sun rising and also the sun setting. Now, I don't have anything to do with that, do you? But yet at that moment in time, depending on where you are in the world and where things align there, the sun comes up over the horizon in the east, and by the way, sets in the west for everybody. And we have this tour of 365 days-ish a year around this sun. You doing that? I'm not. And that's just to illustrate there's this bigger order of fate. And this is the synchronicity of fate. Now, the synchronicity of fate has a couple faces. This is one of them where it's just, hey, it's just life doing life, the earth doing the earth, the solar system doing what it does, creation doing what it does, the Milky Way doing what it does. And we're along for the ride. Yet, this isn't a random. This is absolutely all divine design. And your life plan is connected to these movements, these flows, these alignments, these cycles of synchronicity. All of ours are. So when you think about your own personal relationship with synchronicity, I think it's really crucial to also ask, how grounded are you in things bigger than you as being big players in what shapes your own personal synchronicities and your life? It's interesting in a Western kind of independent-minded, I am the center of attraction, philosophy-based culture that we don't take into perspective often the multiple other cosmic laws in play, like gravity, like the tectonic plate movement of the Earth's crust, like the seasonal processes, the movement of the Earth around the sun, the night and day cycle, and how yet we're all embedded in that. So this is a bigger arena of cosmic levels of alignment, things happening or not. That's one face of the synchronicity of fate. There's another face. And that face is when we are deeply unconscious or resistant to awakening in our lives, such that we go into our own psyche and shove away into the shadow any messages, guidance, or pressures to evolve. Meaning any messages, guidance, or pressures to leave the known of our lives for the unknown. When you do that, when you don't flow with the organic nature of destiny, which is to continually grow, continually move into the unknown, continually evolve creatively, to continually express yourself anew, to move out in and out of certain identities and develop into new ones. When you aren't in flow with that, you also will experience what I call the synchronicity of fate. And this is the sort of fate that's born out of a resistance to change, and not even resistance. Sometimes we just don't have the skills or the tools, or maybe just the willingness and awareness to change. And when we don't have that, or when we actually have all that and we still resist, then we have activated synchronicity. But it's the 2x4 variety. It's the things not aligning. I'm sure you've had days where just like, it just feels like you can't get a break. From the most annoying, mundane sorts of things, misaligning, mishapping on you, to really big things in your life, blowing up. Well, that's synchronicity as well. And the main thing here that I have to introduce now about synchronicity, that is, I think, consistent with it from dimension to dimension, to category, level to level, I'm going to teach you about a few of these things shortly, is that it is always a messenger. It always carries some kind of reflective instruction, whether that's, hey, the earth is going through a massive tectonic shift and you're seeing the signs. So do you want to take that information and, I don't know, adjust accordingly because you're not changing this? That volcano over there is about ready to blow up and it's part of the earth's process. It's bigger than you. You're not changing this, but I'm giving you signs. Are you picking up on them? Are you listening so that you can adjust, adapt, and get the heck away from that volcano? You know, that's metaphorical, but also could be literal. Still, it's a messenger. And it's most certainly a messenger when it comes to the synchronicity that speaks to you about where you're blocking your own organic evolutionary flow. And if you got real still with yourself and looked at and did a profile on the synchronicity of fate in your life and really said, all right, what are these things that keep happening and seem like obstacles? What are they trying to tell me? Well, if you were to do that, what you would realize is that you're not listening to the message. And then the question becomes, well, why don't you want to hear that message? What in you can't metabolize guidance? What in you shuts it down? And when you discover what that is, then you are given an opportunity to start hearing that the guidance for now is go into why you won't listen. And what we tend to do, instead of going into that, because that can be very painful territory, and it's going into the shadow. It's going into your backside. It's going into your trauma, perhaps. It's going into your insecurities, some of your biggest fears, and your need for controlling life versus trusting it. It's going into all that, which is quite a feat. So if you don't want to do that, then all synchronicity can do is keep telling you to do that. There's no other messages going to come through. And if you start to stay in a lockdown around guidance that way, there's another form of synchronicity that's going to arrive, and it's called the shadow trickster, which is a subset of the synchronicity of fate in this second face of it that I'm talking about now. Now hold that thought, putting things on the map, because there's also the synchronicity of destiny. And what I've learned, and that I'm teaching in this masterclass in depth, in fact, we just did an entire lesson on what I'm going to share with you right now, is that to go from the synchronicity of fate into the synchronicity of destiny, of which intentional synchronicity is sort of a branch on that tree, which I'm going to get to in a minute. To get from fate to destiny, you're going to have to go through a dark night of the ego, as I've called it for the last 10 years. So 10 years ago or so, I began to realize that what's really going on, and I wrote about this in my book, Transforming Fate into Destiny, and I also wrote about this in other articles, and also have done multiple online courses about this dark night of the ego, alchemy. But what the dark night of the ego really is, it's a loss and dissolution and letting go of identity. So if you track with me here, synchronicities of fate are telling you, go to the dark night. Deactivate this identity that's served its time. You can't become who you were born to be by staying the same you. And that means you can't become who you're born to be by staying in the same identity, or identities, as it were. So when it's classically been called the dark night of the soul, I would say, technically speaking, that's not accurate, because it's not really dark for your soul. Does the soul go through an alchemical transformation through a dark night? Yeah, I know that's true. It's evolving here. But it's not dark. The dark is for your ego identity. So I'm going to give you some diagrams and stuff later to talk about this a little bit real briefly. But I just took my masterclass through 6 stages. There's 6 stages in the dark night of the ego I've identified. And I went in for the first time ever, specifically through the lens of synchronicity. How does synchronicity speak to you in each stage? Now, for now, what I'll say is, look, if you're in synchronicities of fate, intentional synchronicity isn't even an option for you. This is an option for the initiated, and the initiated only. So I'm going to describe a lot of this in due course, because what intentional synchronicity is, it's understanding the multi and interdimensional nature of synchronicity so well that you can work with it consciously, like a call and response intuitive guidance system with the universe and your soul contract. That's the magical nature of intentional synchronicity. If you're someone that's locked into wounded ego identities and you can't, let's throw a few in. Let's say you identify quite often as a victim. That has become identity for you. It's not just an experience one has, it's actually who you think you are. And how do we know? Well, it's in your language. You say, this should happen, this shouldn't happen. Why? Why me? Why not me? This is the language of the victim archetype in us. And it's not right or wrong. We all have a victim. The difference becomes, especially in terms of your relationship with synchronicity, do you make victim consciousness and experiences identity? Do you define that as who you are unconsciously? Obviously, I don't think any of you would be like, I'm just going to self-identify as a victim today. Sounds like a great idea. But you do unconsciously. And if I were to listen to you speak or read your system, I'd see it immediately. And where that's dominant for you. Now, it's a natural survival adaptation for most of us, actually. We don't want to make it wrong, but what I do want to technically lay out here is that anything like that, it sets you up to the synchronicity of fate. And it takes you out of the possibility of intentional synchronicity. Because intentional synchronicity is the synchronicity of a co-creator, not a victim. Track with me. There's so much here. That's why I'm 24 hours in a masterclass on lesson 11 headed to lesson 14. So now, backing up here, you've got to go through some kind of dark night process, which is the dark night of ego identity, to get to the synchronicity of destiny. So what's the synchronicity of destiny? It's flowing with synchronicity in a way where you're in a certain kind of balance with power and powerlessness when it comes to your co-creative journey. What do I mean? You understand the larger cosmic order that you cannot control. You're not an illusion about that. And because you understand that, you know where your circumference of power actually is and where it isn't. You stop trying to control through fantasy, magical thinking, things you cannot control. And you start getting down with the magic of the things you can. When you're in that space in yourself, being inside the circumference of the magic of the things you have power to change or control, synchronicity can speak to you very clearly. What we don't really embrace enough, and it's something that I've added into my teaching since I became a teacher, is that we are forever and always embedded in the intricacies of an interdimensional, interrelational life. What I just said is, listen, there are so many other karmic forces whipping in and out of your field, informing and influencing your own personal zone of power, destiny, and what you can and can't create, that you don't see them because you're not paying attention. And we've been acculturated not to. We've been acculturated to think that we are the center point of everything. Not that, hey, if you want to actually farm the land, you might want to understand, I don't know, the weather patterns, the rise and set of the setting of the sun, and seasons. most of us approach our co-creative mission, and there's a lot of books that sadly say to do this from some point of view, that we are the sole generators of our healing, of our power, of our capacity to change our lives and manifest what we want. Anything you ever intend into creation and as a manifestation track, or I want to create this, has to negotiate so many other karmic influences, it would blow your mind. So you may very well have some sort of, let's say, dream of becoming president someday. But guess what? You're gay or lesbian in a homophobic culture that would never elect a president who is gay or lesbian yet. So extrapolate from that for your own journey, because this is how you actually really intuitively clearly read the lay of the land and karmic forces and the holographic nature of creation. You start to look at the threads that are influencing and informing you. And why am I attaching this to synchronicity? Because synchronicity is like this energetic tissue that flows. It's like fascia that goes from one dimension, one karmic force to another as messenger. And when you, for example, do a divination, you're basically saying to the forces, I want your mapping in front of me right now. I want to see every layer of influence here, so I understand my compass, my true north, and what is practically realizable within my creative journey right now or in the future. So I need to read on both inner forces in my psyche, in my patterns, and outer ones as well. I need to know the holographic lay of the land. And when you engage in something like divination, which is an intentional synchronicity, it is an activated intentional form of synchronicity. You're saying, give me the lay of the land. I want to read. Now, that's one thread. And you can already probably sense why this subject is so incredibly massive. It's interdimensionally massive. It's karmically massive. But what synchronicity has a pulse on always is exactly that. All the karmic forces in play, all the patterns, all the cycles. And it reports in. It is the call and response. You say to the universe, hey, I need to read on this. And then synchronicity goes up on it, goes out to the field, interconnects through every dimensional space relative to your query, and then reports right back into you with a sign, with an archetype, with a symbol. And why sign, archetype, or symbol? Because they can hold holographic data. The literal world cannot. It's not holographically capable. So you need a sign, you need an archetype, you need a symbol, and your own intuitive system goes, got it. I'm pulling the download of the numerous dimensions you're speaking through to me about my question. Thank you. That is a destiny-aligned way to work with synchronicity. That is the synchronicity of destiny. But it's also when you have gone through a dark night and the dawn is coming and you're in this new, fresh, nobody space, and new identity is starting to emerge. And the gods take it from there and they say, look, we got it all set up here. Here's your next dimension of experience. Here's your next dimension of potential. We're lining up doors. They're going to open because you're ready, because you're aligned. And boom, this is when things just seem to flow. That door opened for you and you didn't even knock. The person shows up into your life and you didn't even, where'd they come from? How'd they get here? That's the synchronicity of destiny. And then some. I mean, I literally could go on and on about this. I've got 20 years of information about this force. Now, inside of the synchronicity of destiny, as I said earlier, exists intentional synchronicity. And I hope that you're starting to see why I said this isn't a force you can access until you've gone through some kind of dark night negotiation, or you've been initiated into yourself in a certain way that usually requires a dark night process, frankly. Not always. But to the zones of your life, let me say it this way, to the zones of your life that exist in the light and not your shadow, intentional synchronicity might be accessible there. So I'm going to pause button there. And I'm going to kind of tell you my bigger plan here with this social live, because I'm going to actually let you listen in on lesson 1 that I did back in June. So I can just sort of give you even more information. I'm kind of consolidating some more advanced pieces that came later in lessons inside the masterclass. But I wanted to give you something to really consider. One, because I think understanding synchronicity in a new way is absolutely imperative for where we are in our evolutionary pressures right now. I did an online event when COVID-19 broke out called our first One World Synchronicity. That was the name of the actual online event. I did it for free. And it ended up being like 16 hours, I can't remember, where I went through COVID-19 as a messenger of synchronicity, the possible reads on it, the possible threads on it. And here we are, a year and a half, 2 years later. And sadly, what I will say just briefly on that is we haven't gotten the message. Not really. If we were to look at life as an organic, holistic force in which holism is, above all else, honored, understood as a mystical zone from which we all came from, and understood as, therefore, putting us all into a zone of having equal value. We all matter. So let's treat each other that way. And that's not how people are treating each other right now. I just went to my veterinarian today who told me that he's literally having now to kick people out of his practice for being so horribly rude, inappropriate. And I see this a lot when you're out shopping. So what I'm saying here, and I'm getting at here, this is why I think understanding synchronicity is crucial for your own dimensional ease of evolution, transition, your own potential birthing out, and understanding your own symbolic codes, your own intuitive system, understanding how life is always talking to you. But you don't know its language. You want life's language to be in allegiance to your political party or whatever it is. You want life's holistic language to take sides when that's not the nature of life or the mystical realm or holism. It's holistic. It doesn't take a side. So synchronicity, its role here is that it doesn't either. It doesn't take sides. It is a messenger of holism. So let me say it another way. It could possibly oftentimes be giving you messages of, hey, you're out of alignment with holism here. What are you doing? You're out of alignment with holism over here. And what I've learned as a human being, let alone intuitive, is that when we're out of alignment with holism, we suffer. We all suffer. All of us, because we are all interconnected. And synchronicity operates on that mystical truth, all is one. Not on, well, this is my side, so speak to me on my side. When you actually approach synchronicity from that place or that mindset, you just get the shadow version of the trickster and you hit a lower bottom, and we all do. So that's just a little interjection of why I'm passionate about this subject and why I wanted to share it with you and get it on your radar, because you may right now in your own life be misinterpreting synchronicity's messages and suffering because you are. That was why I decided to do such a massive body of work on this subject alone. Now, I got to do something from my sponsor here. So just so you're aware, I have an incredible, very cool sale going on my website right now. I call it the holidays, and that means that everything on the website is actually 40% off until the end of the month. So if you go to my website, you can check it out. This is kind of what you're going to see, that all orders over $60 are 40% off. So I have a lot of classes up there. Now, the Intentional Synchronicity Masterclass is only inside the membership. So you would literally have to join the membership to take it, because I'm not teaching it outside of that membership. It's exclusive. But one other class that a lot of you I know are probably waiting for to open, because there's some master classes that I only open once a year, is this one, The Empathic Soul and Love Rebel. And I'm not going to talk too much about that right now. Just want to let you know it's open. It closes at the end of the month and doesn't open again until next year, next December. Incredible course to take, especially for those of you who are, really sensitive and have a real challenge managing your empathic senses and just generally your empathic system. What I offer in that masterclass is a whole new multisensory psychology that helps address so much that's never ever been talked about before about those of us that are really, really sensitive. I actually have identified it as you are an empathic soul. You're not an empath, you're an empathic soul that was fused and born into a 5-sensory psychological model. And right there alone is a lot of your problems. You need a multisensory psychological model, or you won't ever understand your system and then know how to keep the funk out and let the good in. So anyway, go check out ohado.com. There's that banner, a holiday sale is on my homepage, and the sale ends on December 31st. And the doors for my membership close on the 29th, by the way. I'll talk about that later. So what I want to do next, we started out with a bit of a bang. First of all, how are all of you? This is Social Live. I just want to make sure I check in with you. Whoa, just getting taken over by the intensity of the content that I wanted to share with you. It's really just so dynamic, and there's just so much new to say about synchronicity that I have to offer. So if you have any questions, actually, I'll take some questions now if you want to put them in the chat. I can see all of your chats. Hi, Maz Barnes, Miriam Lisbeth. I know you. Guten Abend aus Colorado. I've got some German people. Louisa Leita, how are you doing? All right, I can see all of you. We got YouTube and Facebook in the house, so I'm streaming to both. Justice Antonio Caban, cool name. Damn. Jill Elaine McDonald. All right, catching my live. I'm glad you're here. All right, yeah, it's fun. So, by the way, I have a bunch of lives coming up over the next few weeks. In fact, there's another one Friday. So stick around to the very end, and I'll tell you all about that. You won't want to miss that as well. Digital Dame. Hi from Australia. You guys have some of the cool. David Beck, how are you? I know you. Well, great to see you all. Give a shout out if you want. And once again, if you have any questions, you might not yet, because I probably just fried your brain a little bit. And when we get to the end of everything I want to present to you, I'll definitely take some of your questions then too. All right, catching up on replay. Cool. Well, listen, so here's what's going to happen next. I'm going to shift to a recording of me in lesson 1, and I'll just share. I don't know. I'll just see how long I want to share it for. Probably like a good 30 minutes, and some of it might be a little bit of what I just said, because this is lesson 1 in my masterclass, and I was laying down a lot of foundational things. But it'll go a little deeper either way. And like I said, a lot of the stuff I offered just now was a bit of a skip ahead to other lessons that I've taught. We're 11 lessons in, and I'm teaching about 14 to 16 lessons in this masterclass. So. Linda, that's a massive question. And actually I would have you, the thing about COVID, what is it? Almost 2 years later now, since I did that. Cause I did that in March of 2020. Everything I said in that original thing is still the same. I wouldn't say anything else. I think it's on YouTube. Go check it out. And I think there's the free version still up on YouTube. You can go see. I also have it. I have the fully post-produced version on my website, which you could grab with the holiday sale if you want. But I wouldn't change anything I said in there. And it was a lot to say. It was the same read that I had on it originally. I wouldn't change anything. I think we're still struggling with really understanding what a lot of things in our lives at this time are trying to say about our need to embrace holism and with each other and with ourselves and with the earth and with the planet. I think it's sort of self-evident in a lot of ways, but it's a big question. Okay. So I'm going to come back. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back and take your questions after I talk a little bit more through this little sample of my lesson. And I think this is going to go right to me if it works out correctly. And then you can take it in for a good 30 minutes. I'll come back and take some questions and then tell you about the next social life. All right, so here we go. I think, let me just see. I'm going to add this to the stream. So I might disappear, but don't worry, I'm right here. My little arena. Things like soul contracts, soul agreements, divine order, divine timing. Okay, so I'm going, guys. Religious ideas of synchronicity. What do we see there? It's very different than going into, let's say, the metaphysical ideas of synchronicity. Then we've got quantum, mechanics and quantum philosophy now in this new quantum age, birthing new ideas about how we do, in fact, interact and co-create our reality. And what you will find wherever you go, is you will find synchronicity. You will find it somewhere because it is a connective, energetic tissue that interweaves through multiple dimensions and connects everything. It is this sort of fascia of co-creation. But more than that, it has an electricity to it. It moves around on the power grids of life. It moves around in your interior. It can align and set up situations in your life without your conscious participation. We're going to call that unconscious synchronicity or spontaneous synchronicity. And what I'm here to teach you about is something different that I think is new. And that is intentional synchronicity. But before I can teach you about intentional synchronicity, we have a lot to get through. We have a lot. Because when in my work as an intuitive, reading people, which I have been doing for almost 20 years professionally, and in my work, not only in intuitive readings, but working with intuitive tools, and one of my favorites is astrology, I have been a student of this psychic law. I have been someone that's watched it play out in real people, in real fate and destiny journeys on this planet. So where I'm coming from in this masterclass, and certainly as we kick off this lesson, I'm not coming from theory. I have so many stories to share with you about synchronicity. In fact, I'm going to end on a personal one that it's gonna land it right in your lap because you've already been experiencing this force. You cannot but experience this force if you're alive on this planet. It is one of your greatest messengers, directors, guides. It will open doors where there were none. It will also close doors. It doesn't, and that's what we have to go into is what are the things in you that block a flow of this, what I call the synchronicity of destiny? Why do you instead unconsciously activate and animate what I call the synchronicity of fate? What does it take to, get into a journey of transition from the synchronicity of fate into the synchronicity of destiny, in which we will find intentional synchronicity? Well, what it takes is we've got to remodel and reinvent the entire wheel of our understanding of this force. There's things that we can keep. Carl Jung laid down incredible frameworks around this force. Absolutely brilliant. Yet, and it feels funny to say this because I have such insane respect for that man. But yet, he could only see as far in terms of this law as his own models would allow. And what I'm bringing to you is truly, if I compound it all together, I started studying synchronicity at 19. I'm 49 years old. And that began my sophomore year in college with a buddy, a frat brother, true story, of mine. And him telling me, hey, you know what, dude, I read tarot cards. And I'm like, what? Really? It's like, yeah, can I do a reading on you? I'm like, sure. And let me tell you something. That reading stopped me in my tracks because it was not fortune telling in the way that many of us would maybe project and associate, tarot cards with, or witchcraft, or none of that. It was a synchronistic, technical, almost hacking of my psyche, of my life plan, of my energetics. And I remember looking at him and I said, while he was doing the reading, I'm like, hey, Ben, how the hell are you doing this? And he said, I'll teach you if you want. And that summer, I studied the Kabbalah. I studied, and that is what you do truly study in the tradition of where the tarot's origins come from. You have to study the Kabbalah. You have to study an archetypal mapping system that coordinates in a interdimensional way all the archetypal forces of co-creation that it can. And that's what the Kabbalah offers, if understood properly. And then it's then translated into a divination tool. I would say a tool of synchronicity. But I was hooked. I was hooked, line and sinker. And then from there, while I'm studying psychology, clinical psychology in college, I'm at the local metaphysical bookstore picking up every single book I can on archetypes, Jung, Joseph Campbell, astrology, anything. And you know what it was driven by? Was my voracious need to heal and understand myself. So I have been walking hand in hand with the psychic law of synchronicity since I was 19 years old. I don't know if you guys just heard that. I just like lightning and thunder right outside my window as I say that. Synchronicity. What I want to, and that's all just to tell you, listen, this isn't actually, although I just gave you a little bit of spiel about my journey with this law, this is about you. This isn't about me. This is about what I can offer to you so that you can borrow from my decades of experience. And then, coming off of that, I did a 10-year dive into all things synchronistic and all tools synchronistic and all philosophies synchronistic. And then I began doing intuitive readings, astrology readings. And that was 20 years ago. And in that time, I would tell you this, that my own entering into the psyches of people, their energetics, their life blueprints, I entered into the energy of people through synchronicity. It's the gateway of a reading. So I entered into my client's life plan. I entered into the timing of that life plan and how it was going to unfold. I entered into their psyche and psychology. I entered into their archetypes, their patterns. I entered into their cycles of life, which I also call cycles of synchronicity. I entered into their choices. I entered into their esteem systems. I entered into everything that I could see about them. And I'll tell you, and I want to share this with you because this is important to understand. We all have blind sides, right? And limiting concepts of all sorts of things in life, but most notably about synchronicity. And I will tell you, I had many blind sides that got illumined and put into my front view through the actual experiences I was having with clients. That was always, and still is in many ways, my best teacher. And in simultaneity, my intuitive skill set blew up. And I got to the point where I could sit in your energy field and look around and talk about things for hours. A reading couldn't just be 30 minutes. Because I could see too many things in a spherical way, which means multidimensional and holographic way, that interconnect and make you you. And if I pull one thing, I'm pulling the whole hologram. And I can't just talk about, well, here's the, why, Robert, why do I keep dating people that aren't available? That's a holographic question that requires a holographic answer. It's not just one thing. I'd have to go through your family history. I'd have to go through culture. I'd have to go through how your psyche adapted itself through various, what I call survival archetypes of adaptation to survive. I'd have to go into your relationship with the unknown, something we're going to talk about. It's very important when it comes to synchronicity. And I'll ask you right now, what is your relationship like with uncertainty and the unknown? Because whatever you answer that with, honestly, is going to say a lot about how you'll block synchronicity, how you won't want to hear its message. Because synchronicity does this. It comes outside of your known reference points of self, your own known reference points of reality. And it says, you thought that's reality? You're not seeing the whole hologram. You got to blow up to a bigger sphere of understanding if you want to take the next step in co-creating your life. You don't have to do that. We can all opt to stay small and condense down, but we have each signed, if you will, a soul contract or soul agreement to blow up big. And the force that guides you in that expansion is absolutely synchronicity. Absolutely. So the insights I'm going to share with you throughout our whole journey in this masterclass, they come from real people, not from any theory. And they also come from what I can see with my intuitive eyes. And this is how I like to frame every masterclass or really course I ever teach. I like to frame it this way because I don't really do personal intuitive readings and consultations anymore. Like I said, I got to the point where I could just get so much information, and that's a lot of energy to hold and to put out to people. I eventually had to realize I've got to start teaching you how to do this for yourself. So this whole masterclass, I want you to consider it. It's an intuitive reading on your relationship with synchronicity, on the synchronicities in your life. And there's so much in that. That said, what I've seen is that most folks are bound to what I call the synchronicity of fate. And let me just tell you a little bit about that right now. And this is where I would have to really point you to Carl Jung's work on synchronicity. Carl Jung began to realize that there's a phenomena that we generate unconsciously in our lives, where if we're not willing to become conscious of something, or if we're just flat out blind, it's in a blind side, then for that thing that is destined to become conscious in you, to become conscious, it has to play out through fate. What does that mean? Well, you've already lived this. You know, we're living this, you know, I think a little bit in some orb of it all the time. And that is, things have to play out the hard way. It's that proverbial 2x4 by the universe. It says, you wouldn't listen to the whisper. We gave you the tap. So boom, here's the 2x4. And this is where you actually, whether you realize it or not, are co-creating fate in your life. You're just not consciously engaging to do that, but you're actually creating your own fate. And here's the good news. You don't have to. You absolutely don't have to. When clients came to me for readings, it's because they're so knee-deep in their fate that they need me to, you know, give them a life raft and pull them out up into some destiny. So every reading I did was, okay, I've got to figure out how to get you from fate to destiny. Let's do this. Let me get in and let me see what I can do, and let me see what other sources of guidance I can connect to on your behalf. And let's go. So you'll find yourself, and this is what's so incredible about it. I mean, the synchronicity of fate literally orchestrates and organizes events, situations, and let's start to really call them what they are: mishaps, accidents, betrayals. Go down the list of the things that have felt like a 2x4 in your life that have hit you. Now, I don't want to say that everything that's maybe challenging is a synchronicity of fate. That's actually not true. But I do want you to kind of relate to what I'm saying here in your own experience and go, okay, yeah, I know what you mean, Ohado. I've definitely had a few 2x4s here and there, and some things knock my ass down. And then I know, I just actually kind of generated that unconsciously because I wouldn't listen to the truth. I just wouldn't listen. I don't, and why not? Why not? Why wouldn't you listen to guidance? That's a massive question, and we're going to explore that through the entire masterclass. But just some examples to riff here. Maybe you don't want to change. Maybe you don't want to take action in a way that changes your life. What if your guidance is, hey, that marriage you're in is over, or this career you're in is over, or you go down the line of things that we don't want to hear. And that's not right or wrong. It's human. It's human. But this is where I have to point you to, okay, you went out of the synchronicity of fate, then we got to go into some different territory and do some shifts. We've got to become conscious of some dynamics and how synchronicity works. We've got to understand, certainly in this example, the fundamental law and laws of the human psyche. We've got to understand how you actually, yes, you do, co-create your own fate. And you don't have to. And what would it look like to get to the synchronicity of destiny? Well, you're going to need two things. Fundamentally in-game here, you're going to need to understand a new model of synchronicity that I call a spherical model of synchronicity. And you're also going to need to work with intentional synchronicity. So conversely, let's go to the other side real quick, the synchronicity of destiny. You know, think of times, this has happened to me. I even think that these synchronicities of destiny and fate actually end up sort of in a cycle. Like you can be in a cycle where it's just one 2x4 after another, right? And then you can end in cycles where it's like, oh my God, I'm in this kind of brilliant flow. Like things I didn't even know I needed are showing up. And I'm like, oh, I need that. And then there it is. And doors I didn't even know were going to open just opened. So a lot of times, this is the truth that I would have you, and I want you to explore this stuff in yourself. This is like a life review time to go, okay, where do I map this in my own experience? So I can think of times when I had synchronicities of destiny, and frankly, I didn't really do a lot for them to be there. They just sort of generated. And then I can think of times where I co-created them. I co-created those doors opening. I engaged. I did inner work. I did something we're going to cover, shadow work. I blew up into a more multidimensional understanding of reality. I started to understand the interior archetypal forces of my own soul contract and psyche. I began to understand me. And not only me, we. And I began to set intentions in motion. And this is a really key point when it comes to intentional synchronicity and the synchronicity of destiny that you've got to hear. You cannot activate the synchronicity of destiny with your will. Give it up. That is not the force that animates it. You activate it through intention. And there is an absolute difference that we're going to cover. So think about those times where life just got in this flow, that just really seemed bigger than you. And in a sense, it is and was bigger than you. But what I want to teach you is that we are moving into a new co-creative era. And we're moving into this new era. I call it the spherical era. And in the spherical era, we are being given, if you will, waking up to, beginning to realize, beginning to utilize, all that applies to me and more, this truth that we have a say in the co-creation of reality. And then we're going to do this. I'm going to break this into different levels of cosmic order. You've got to understand the multiple levels of cosmic order to understand what it means for you to, with your personal power, co-create reality. Because here's what's true, just briefly. There's some things you're not changing. They're bigger than you. None of us are changing how the solar system operates, right? I mean, it ain't happening. give it up. Not that you want to, but I'm just, using this as an example. There are greater mechanics and creative forces that we cannot do anything about. We're not meant to. Then there's this middle ground where, you know what? We can do something. But it's not just us involved. It's a mix. And then there's another space where it's about you. It's about you. So what I want you to understand is that as you enter into this masterclass with me, I think it's really important so we can really get you to spherical synchronicity so that we can get you in this new era, this new age. It's really important that you do, I do want you, like I just said, summon your historical reference points with synchronicities in your life. Absolutely bring that forward. I want your life experience front and center, but there's a caveat. I do not want you to summon your previous concepts as to what those synchronicities were about, how they happened, etc. You've got to leave that at the door. It'll only hinder you regarding where I want to take you from here. Because I want to offer something. This right here is synchronicity. This lesson 1, this masterclass is synchronicity right in front of you. Because what I'm going to offer you is something that's outside of your current reference points about this psychic law. So don't bring those reference points in here in regards to conceptualizing what synchronicity is. Just give me a blank slate. Just give yourself that blank slate. You get through this masterclass and you realize, well, I like my old reference points. That's fine. But I need you, beginner's mind here. But with your life experience in tow, take what I'm going to give you and run it through your life experiences. Absolutely. But concepts about how the psychic law of synchronicity works, let's just put them to the side. And let's take a journey together. Trust me, I got you. Now, I want you to think of some things here that will help you evaluate your own relationship to synchronicity. We're going to go through like a little mini evaluation together. And then I do want to talk about why it's so important that we do shift to spherical synchronicity in this new co-creative era. So, as I ask these questions, feel yourself in them. Feel what's true. Is it possible that you truly don't fully understand how synchronicity operates in a dynamic, archetypal, and multidimensional way via different levels and types of manifestation? I mean, I'm probably saying things that you're like, actually, the whole question's foreign to me, Ohado. That's my point, if that's true for you. I'm coming at this from a place you can't conceive of. Could a common, limited understanding that's culturally supported about synchronicity that most folks harbor be keeping you from seeing or accurately interpreting the synchronicities of your life? So what I've seen happen here is that people will have a concept that they project onto synchronicity versus perceive its nature. And there's many reasons why we do that. For example, we want to feel like we have more power than we do. And the sad thing in that is, while we're kind of trying to create, for example, and construct this whole idea that the only law that creates all of life is the law of positive and negative attraction. Now, as I guide you through this entire masterclass, you're going to see that is absolutely false. It's just not true. And your own life experience is going to tell you that. It's not that I'm saying this to be contrarian or ruffle feathers at all. I teach what's true from my own journey and from what I've seen as an intuitive. And then it's up to you to see, hey, how does that feel? But how could we ever reduce the complexities of co-creation down to one law? We can't. Co-creation is way too dynamic. For example, just on that little piece alone, I have done readings on people that have what I call the Bodhisattva soul contract. Now, a Bodhisattva is an enlightened being in Buddhism that has already achieved its own enlightenment. And it's a pattern I begin to see in certain people, in their soul contracts, in their destinies, that they had already come to a place of growth and compassion and understanding about various lessons, if you will, or learning regarding co-creation in life. But they reincarnate to help another person who hasn't got there yet. And what that looks like in real life is they tend to take on really challenging things. I did a reading on a man once who took on an entire pattern of addiction from the family psyche into himself and ended up an alcoholic and could not figure out why he could not get sober. And when I read him, I said, I know exactly what's going on here. You're in the grips of shame about your addiction. Huge. But moreover, and more importantly, perhaps, you don't understand. You absorbed that pattern from the family psyche because you were a soul strong enough to alchemize it. Now, if we were to interpret this through, I think what's more popular in terms of the law of attraction, we'd be like, oh, he attracted this negative stuff to himself. He absolutely did not. His compassionate bodhisattva level soul said, I'm going to take your darkness, at least some of it, and give you a chance to evolve. Because that darkness, if we just let that karmic heap of darkness sit on you, it's too heavy. I'm going to get in, I'm going to absorb so you get a little bit of room, and we got to do some work here. That's just one example of many. There's so many laws I'm going to teach you about. And what you'll find is that synchronicity speaks on behalf of all of them. You just have to be in a way that's attuned to seeing that. You've got to cultivate multisensory, multidimensional perception. You've also got to cultivate a multisensory, multidimensional psychology. That's going to be coming up in this masterclass. Now, that said, when we do see things in the world from a concept that betrays the truth of reality or the truth of a co-creative dynamic, well, we're going to make wrong turns. We're going to make decisions on that false perception. We're going to engage in a lot of self-sabotage that way, actually. We're going to misalign, actually, from opportunities. And in a shame-based culture that we live in, we're going to sit around and make ourselves wrong. It's pretty much what I've seen most people do with some of these philosophies out there in self-help and spirituality. They sit around and make themselves wrong for being too negative or for not, for counterintending or for not getting it right. And it breaks my heart. So continuing this evaluation, and this is kind of interesting to kind of consider. Have you been mixing up true synchronicity with happenstance, coincidence, and serendipity? I mean, these become synonymous or synonyms in our language, but they are not the same thing. So let me just riff around here for a minute. Synchronicity is something that is specifically aligned to your journey, you. If you experience a synchronicity, now let me just lightly touch in here. Think about the times you've experienced synchronicity. What happened in your system, your intuitive system? Well, maybe what happened, if it was really on point, is that you felt this moment of like something electric just went, and you went, oh, I got to pay attention. This is for me. This sign, this event, this deja vu, this whatever, it's for me. And I'd say to you, well, how do you know that it's for you? And you'd probably answer me and go, because I just feel something in me deeper than just my ego mind going, listen, pay attention. This is a message for you. Now, if you're encountering a synchronicity, this is a certain type of synchronicity that's a messenger. There's other types. That's exactly what you would intuitively, you'd get that intuitive ping. But let me ask you this. If you walk down the street or go to the grocery store or whatever, get on a bus, Are you getting pinged like that all the time? Of course you're not. There are things happening around you. It's called happenstance that are not synchronicities. They're unfoldings of, karma. They're unfoldings of patterns. They're reality just being created and co-creating, as it does. It's not a synchronicity per se. It's happenstance. However, check this out. What could be happenstance for you could be synchronicity for someone else. You got to remember, you're not the only player in this matrix of co-creation. Not even close. Come on. Everyone alive is involved. You think synchronicity only operates just for you? No, of course not. So there can be synchronicities that start to happen that are for someone else. And you're looking at it. They're the one going, "Ooh, I'm getting pinged." And you're looking at it like, "Oh, she just, dropped a book." But in that moment, it was the title of the book that dropped. It was what she was thinking when it dropped. It was, she just said a prayer an hour before that book dropped. And she's going, "Oh my God, okay, I'm listening." And you're going, "Oh, you dropped your book. You want me to pick it up for you?" For you, it's happenstance. For her or him, it's an absolute message. So you got to realize, one could say, there's a lot of paradox, and that's what happens when we get into the holographic matrix here. We enter into paradox. We could say synchronicities are happening all the time. Absolutely true, but not all of them for you. And I would throw coincidence right in here as well. Things happening in a coincidence. Co-occurring, if you will. Is that a synchronicity? It could be, but it also might not be at all. So when you look at these things, and serendipity more takes the road of things being positive and just aligning in a positive way. And then I think we're starting to bleed into my definitions and understanding of the synchronicities of destiny. But I want to be clear with you. I'm going to go, the main goal of this lesson in part is to define synchronicity in about 10 different ways to land you in a broader, spherically expanded understanding of this force. So that going forward, you're not going to mistake what's what. You're going to know exactly when it's a synchronicity. You're going to also know when it isn't. And we got to then talk about this phenomena of projection. When we begin, what in us begins to project onto events as if they're a synchronicity when they're not. So, I come from the world of divination, oracular consciousness, oracles, synchronicity, intuitive readings, psychic readings, mediumship. This is my lane. And the thing about me that I think makes me a bit unique is I'm just a straight up technician. I want the technical understanding of how things work. There's an empiricism in me. There's a sense of I need the shrewd bottom line. So if you're a psychic medium, I want to know why you can't generate a name, why you got to go with an initial. I want to understand, why do you fish around for, does this feel right to you? I want to know why you're doing that. And I want to know, for the ones I've seen, how you're able to, yes, line in a name, line in, just like you're on the hotline to heaven. I'm that shrewd. I'm that discerning. I don't deal with riffraff. There's a lot of riffraff in my community as well as my lane. And I don't play that way. I want bottom line, boom, let's do this, what's true. And I'm open to understanding, okay, that's, why someone's antenna maybe doesn't connect as strongly, but I want the technical understanding. I want to know exactly what's going on. And that's what I'm going to offer you here, exactly what I've seen go on. So that said, we can project onto synchronicity when it's not synchronicity at all. And there's forces in us, if you will. One would be like the shadow conspiracy theorist, or the reckless optimist, or the thing in you that wants to see something a certain way, is on the hunt for meaning. And let me just give you a little metric here. When you start to go on a hunt for meaning, you just set yourself up for, first of all, shadow trickster synchronicity. But secondly, a rabbit hole. I would say, because to engage this psychic force, this is why you cannot use your will. You don't just will synchronicities. You're talking about a dialogue with the whole entire holism of life, the whole matrix of creation. You think you can will it to do what you want it to do? No, you can co-create with it. You can put an intention into it, and it will absolutely respond. 100% of the time, it will respond to you. But as soon as your wounded ego mind starts to get into hunts for meaning or hunts for signs, I'm going to pull you out and say, stop. You will only see what you project. Stop. So that's why it's really crucial to not mix up happenstance, coincidence, serendipity with this force. This force is a fundamental co-creative force of the universe. Fundamental. Now, is it possible that you have missed true messages, coming off what I just said, of your synchronicities because you weren't intuitively attuned to see them? Absolutely. I'm going to tell you right now, yes, it's absolutely possible. And this is where we do enter into projection dynamics. You've got to understand the difference between projecting a construct and intuitive perception. I don't go into intuitive readings with a construct, ever. I go in with structure that's different. I go in with a sense of, I want this kind of information because this is my expertise, and this is the kind of information I can hold in my psyche holographically, synthesize, and then guide someone through. So that said, it's important to understand you don't enter into synchronicity through constructs. Readings for me are structured. I'm not going in with a construct, which would mean I'm not going into you with an assumption of what's going on, with an agenda. I'm going into you truly, and I'm a messy human being just like everybody, and I can have biases and everything just like everybody, absolutely. But this was one area of my life, and I think it's just a mystical grace where I don't go in that way with people. I mean, you could literally be a murderer and I would read you and there would be no judgment. I would be just in that curious blank space of what makes you you. What is your destiny? Maybe perhaps, based on what you wanted to know, why did you do what you did? But I don't go in with judgment or shadow judgment or agenda. I just don't. And I can do that in other areas of my life. I don't do it in readings. And that's to say this. If you bring a construct to synchronicity, please hear me. What you're going to do is you're going to keep out anything that doesn't match your construct. This is actually something, just as a teachable moment, that we can see in the world when it comes to our political tribalism, for example. There's left and right, right? There's, and this is not just in the United States. I think this is in many ways worldwide. But there are polarized sides with constructs that don't let each other find a place where they can commune soul to soul, heartbreak to heartbreak, human to human. And this is something that in this day and age of the internet, where we can self-select through our constructs, our news, what's true, what is part of the tribal mindset or tribal pattern that we're part of. We can literally just decide, all I want to see is what I want to see. All I want to hear is what I want to hear. And I would just tell you flat out, that you just set yourself up for the synchronicity of fate. That is exactly how you do it. I'm a Democrat, so that's all I'm going to see is this. I'm a Republican, so that's all I'm going to see is this. Well, guess what? This world just got a lot darker. And it's going to take a dark ass bottom for us to break through that. It's just synchronicity of fate. That's all we got. Now take from that to your own system. If you bring your own projections and constructs to something, I'm not bringing a construct here per se, I'm bringing structure. It's called a model. And I don't claim it to be the be all and end all of this topic. I claim it to be something that can help you structure perception and understand the psychic law of synchronicity. So this is really crucial. And you want to evaluate yourself here. And we're going to do some work on this, some deep dives into construct versus intuitive perception and knowing when you've tipped. You've left perception, you're in a construct. It's tricky. It's really tricky. So what happens when you're in an inner construct? Not only do you keep out anything that is outside of that by the very nature of having a construct, you also betray how the psychic law of synchronicity even works. So, furthermore, back to shadow trickster synchronicities. This is how you activate them right here, right now. Because you're just going to go down a path. The shadow trickster archetype, which I cannot wait to teach you all about. Oh boy, this is one to get down. And once you get it down, you can vibrationally feel when this trickster is around. I can feel when there's trickster energy in my field. And I'm not immune to the trickster per se, but I'm able to kind of pivot out pretty quick when it comes afoot, just because I've learned how to work with this dynamic. And I'm going to teach you how to do the same. But when the shadow trickster comes around, its in design is to lead you down a path that can only offer a harsh bottom, perhaps bottoming out of your entire life. And that usually means a lot of costly consequences. And don't we all know this one, right? And here's the thing. You don't have to do this. There's a way to, in fact, neutralize the shadow trickster and its synchronicities. That's one of the main things I'm going to teach you. So, lastly, in this little evaluation, so you're starting to see, I'm helping you evaluate yourself. I'm adding some insights in to really contrast and get you deep into these questions. But last, could your current unconscious misinterpretation of the communicative signs, right, that the universe gives you be throwing you off optimal timing and slowing and delaying all that you could do in this life? We are going to talk about, and I can't wait to do this, because it blows up a conversation around time. In spherical synchronicity, we're going to talk about spherical time. And we will also talk about the unidirectional nature of linear time. Because synchronicity works with both. And you can. I've seen this in reading after reading after reading. You can throw off your timing. You can throw off opportunities. You can, and that will, truly start to manifest in your psyche in very negative ways. When you're not in alignment with, let's say, the Tao of the universe, the flow, the greater flow of destiny. Just like any block in your physical system, you're starting to throw off systems in your body. Now, in this case, the body of your co-creative life. So this is your first evaluation. Oh, there's more. Yes, we've got more. There's so much here. Now, listen, This masterclass has many aims, and I'm sure you're already getting pinged and insights and starting to reevaluate things, and that's exactly what I want you to do. I want you to start getting activated in your own intuitive system, in your own shadow, in your own blind sides, and in what you've, experiences that you've had are, in your history that were like, wow, I'm here in Ohio, and I remember that time when I really interpreted the sign correctly. I was intuitively on point, and how that felt, because you've got historical references of that as well. The aim of this masterclass, primary aim, and there's so many aims here. My gosh, I'm out of arrows, but I want to transition you out of a life created through the synchronicity of fate. And I want to birth you into a co-creative life that has been consciously and intentionally co-created and formed from intentional synchronicity and thereby the synchronicity of destiny. That's what this is about. That's endgame. That is endgame. Hey, everybody. So if you're joining me, I'm live. That was a recording that's actually taken from my masterclass, Intentional Synchronicity, Activating the Power of Life's Hidden Archetypal Forces. I wanted to share that with everyone as a great introduction to the enormous topic and body of work that I've created in my membership. It's the only place you can get this masterclass. And the good news is that because it's only in the membership, it's actually at an insane price point. So I'm gonna just tell you a little bit about that shortly. But kind of wrapping up, that's lesson one. It's about the first hour of lesson one. Now, if you're joining us, you're joining this video stream a bit late, I did do like about 30 minutes at the beginning of talking about synchronicity as well, from a more consolidated place of a lot of the things I taught in this masterclass. So the masterclass is still happening. We're on a lesson 11, and that's actually this Sunday. And we're in this section where we talk about divination. It's getting very exciting. I wanted to give you a sense of what we just finished, though, and it kind of ties into some of what I just said. I'm going to show you some of the diagrams that I have taught from inside this Intentional Synchronicity masterclass. And then I'm just going to show you how you can get in on it. And you're going to want to hear that because there's a time limit on it. So anyway, one of the things I said in the beginning of this social live is that to move from the synchronicity of fate to the synchronicity of destiny, you go on a dark night of ego identity journey. Let me just give you a little map of what that looks like. And I taught through this map in one of the last lessons, I believe it was lesson 9. And it was like the lesson where everyone just was like, that was a mic drop, Robert. It was just that kind of I go through 6 stages through the lens of synchronicity that you will go through in the dark night of an ego identity. But this is what the map looked like inside of the course. And it just sort of shows, I'm not going to leave it up too long, what happens when you're kicked into the dark night of the ego through a cycle of synchronicity. And you will have a cycle of synchronicity trigger up. Now, what's really important to understand, and I'll leave this insight with you, and if you want to learn more, I'll see you inside the membership, is that synchronicity will speak differently to you throughout this whole entire process. It'll speak in trickster form when you're getting called to the cycle of synchronicity most of the time. And then while you're in the dark night itself, its way of speaking to you will transition. And essentially what that's about is that one of the features, and so the groundwork of this is this. The groundwork of this is this. This live is about intentional synchronicity, but intentional synchronicity isn't something that you can just engage without initiation. You've got to have some deeper initiation into your mystical self to become masterful and skillful with intentional synchronicity. And there are areas perhaps in your life where you might already have some foot in intentional synchronicity. And there's many different ways that we can activate intentional synchronicity. One example that I can tell you right now that's an easier reference point is prayer. Most notably soul prayers. Wounded ego prayers that come from an identity you're trying to keep alive that's meant to die, those don't activate intentional synchronicity. Soul prayers do. So if I said a wounded ego prayer like, oh, dear universe, please don't let my spouse or partner leave me, even though that's really what needs to happen so you can become who you're born to be, because they're not scheduled to grow with you further. Synchronicity is going to speak to you very differently from that prayer versus this prayer. I think this is coming to a close. I would like clarity on whether our time has come to choose different paths. I would also like guidance on how to have a sacred divorce. And please send me signs. Boom, boom, boom. Those signs are going to be like, you're going to lay your head on the pillow and there's a sign there. You're going to have a dream that night. I mean, you're going to get, that's what I mean, that line in to that direct flow of your soul contract, of the design and plan of your optimal potential. That's where synchronicity and you become co-creative partners. But getting there, that diagram I put up just a minute ago, you've got to go through typically that kind of alchemical transformation. And that can last years or it could last 6 months. It depends on how willing you are to hear synchronicity as messenger through the dark night. Now, in the masterclass, I teach you exactly how to do that. So if you're interested, can you tell I'm passionate about this? If you're interested, let me just talk about this for a minute. So this is the masterclass. We're on lesson 11. And I have, if you don't already know, a membership. I've launched it about 1.5 years ago in the spring of 2020. And the way to get into this is the Your Intuitive Edge Premium membership. Doors only open once a year. They're open right now till December 29th. Now, if you want to, just go to my website. There's also links inside the descriptions of this social live to check it out and look it over. I would look over the whole entire description of intentional synchronicity. I've got probably 30 bullet points of things I talk about and cover. It's about a 16-part lesson. Right now, I've already done 24 hours of teaching because it's such it's a masterclass. It is such an incredible subject. And I have so much to say about it. So you would just go here and sign up. Now, just so you're aware kind of how it works, in case you're curious, the way the membership operates is you can either sign up for an annual subscription, which is $240. That means you're paying $20 a month. And you get not only access to this masterclass, you'll also get access to a lot of other things. One thing I would show you is this. This is something I taught already, the luminaries, understanding the astrological sun and moon. You could go back to that module, that course, and take that. And amongst others, there's like 9 other courses in there. And it's also the only place, speaking of astrology, where I actually do deeper astrology guidance and teaching is in the membership. I don't do it anywhere else anymore. So if you're kind of hesitant and you just want to start at the monthly rate, that's $30. But if you sign up for the year, you bring your cost down to $20 a month. It's really up to you if you're interested. But you get immediate access to this masterclass. You'd have to start at lesson 1. Trust me, do not skip lessons. And then you probably wouldn't catch up. I'll probably be finished teaching it by the time that you would catch up to where we actually are. But it's on demand and you'll have access to it so long as you're a member. So by the way, you lock in a certain rate in the membership for life. So if you were to join right now at $240 every year for the rest of your life, that's all you'd have to pay. And I'll tell you a little something I'm doing in 2022 that I have not done yet in the membership that might interest you is I'm teaching Holo Compass courses inside the membership next year. And you can access those. Once again, the reason why I created this was twofold. I wanted a place to really have some flexibility as a teacher to teach things without always having to promote them, because that's a lot of work, by the way, promotion. In part, that's kind of what I'm doing right here, but this is a labor of love. But also I wanted a place, because I'd rather just teach, but I wanted a place for community to happen. We have a great community and our own private Facebook page where people share in the processes together. And it's just been a wonderful thing to see, like actually kindness and compassion and support. It does exist still. Trust me. It's in my membership on our Facebook page. And also I wanted a place where I could continue to explore topics, sometimes not in a deep masterclass way or course way, but just, hey, I want to share 2 hours of insights with you on this topic. My last social live was on the power of being ungrateful. Very huge thought reversal, but very popular video that it's on my YouTube if you want to go check it out. Stuff like that. And then in 2022, FYI, I'm launching a podcast, and there will be additional, exclusive content from the podcast that as a member, you'll have access to. So that just gives you a little sense. I mean, just go look at the website, and if it doesn't feel right to you, I'm not going to, don't join. But if it does, if you're grooving on this material, I'm telling you, you're going to get access to what is normally $1,000 masterclass for what, 20, 30 bucks a month. And yeah, that's all I got. So just go check it out, read it. I mean, it's literally so much. I already gave you so much already. And I always want to do that. I always want to give you content that even if you don't join or take a course, I hope it helps you in some way. But this thing it's brand new stuff. I promise you've never heard this stuff before. It came from my whole body of work. And obviously a lot of things you probably heard tonight you've never heard before. So a little sample there. Now, I'm open to a little Q&A. We can hang out and do some Q&A. If you have questions about the membership, I can take those as well. But if you have any questions about what we covered, I might reference, hey, that's in the masterclass, because sometimes your questions, they're fabulous, but the answer is about 30 minutes long, because once again, it's a holographic question. And yeah, that's why I do masterclasses. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I can see them. And like I said, about the membership or anything else. Otherwise, we'll shut this down pretty soon. Hey, Beth, I'll just give some shout outs while we're waiting. Hey, Beth, I see Susan Francis. Can we choose dark nights? I like that question. I think you can align to a dark night that's scheduled. I wouldn't say you choose it. But I'm going to do a mystical pivot here. On some level, you did choose it at the soul contract level, however. In readings, what I've discovered about dark nights is that, and let me just be clear, a dark night is just not having a bad day or having a bit of a depressive episode. Those don't exactly qualify for dark nights. Dark nights have certain features to them that, and I cover this in the masterclass, that let you know exactly you're in a dark night. So, and it does primarily deal with an identity in you that needs to deactivate so a new identity can emerge and become a co-creative partner to your life. And the way that I look at that is through archetypes. So if I were to say to you, hey, do you have this blood donor archetype that just gives and gives and lets vampires draw from your life force all the time in your life? Well, then that's probably an identity for you, albeit perhaps unconscious. And a dark night might, for example, seek to deactivate you being a blood donor. And notice I say deactivate, not get rid of. You never get rid of an archetype. You actually deactivate it, but you don't get rid of it. It's still going to be, in terms of neuroplasticity, our brains and how they wire, this is a truth. Like, we don't get rid of brain wiring. We just make new circuits in our brain that we use instead. Same, it's as above, so below, baby. It's the same thing. So archetypes become identity. And that's not right, wrong, good, or bad. In fact, it's how we create our lives and know who we are to some degree. The challenge is we're not taught how to be with identity in a multi-sensory psychological way, and in a way that's fluid enough for our evolution and our potential to flourish. So dark nights come to deactivate identity. Now, in this masterclass, the way I come at this is, okay, I teach you those 6 stages of how that happens. And all the while through them, I'm like, all right, stage 1, this is how synchronicity is going to talk to you. Stage 2, this is how synchronicity is going to talk to you. Look alive. This is how to know it's the trickster or a real intuitive voice. So I offer that kind of guidance inside this masterclass. And in fact, I think most people were most riveted based on membership feedback in this arena of what we covered. It was like, crazy enlightenment blow-ups happening for people in life shifts. And now I think people are becoming increasingly more riveted by the divination side of where we're headed. But great question. I don't think you choose dark nights. I think they're scheduled and you can align to them. But a lot of times I think this is our human nature, and we're not taught how to align to dark nights or flow into new transformational or transitional stages. And the only real framework we've been offered is religious. And that's why I think, with John on the Cross, we were offered through his original framework that he didn't even call the Dark Night of the Soul. Someone else called it that. It was a poem. But I think those mystics back in that time were tinkering around with multisensory psychology. They didn't call it that, but it was the only place it had a chance to start evolving. And then, of course, Carl Jung comes along, Freud, other people, and blow it up even bigger. And then, myself, Carolyn Mace, other people that I think are really just incredible teachers have been laying down different maps ever since. But yeah, I hope that helps. Okay. Any other questions? Dark Night of the Soul lasted 4 years. Lisa, yeah, absolutely. I have seen clients where it's lasted 15. I know clients where it's lasted 20. You can't underestimate how identity is so integrated into every facet of your life. So when I say to you, hey, I'm tracking as I read you and feel you that you have a strong codependent pattern, then I go to, well, what in your life has that pattern created? And there's no arena of life where that pattern, I won't find that pattern. So if you go through a dark night as a codependent, and let's say the dark night of the codependent, then everything in your life that you created through that pattern has to also deactivate. And this is why it'll take a while. It doesn't mean that everyone attached to you or every relationship formed from your codependent pattern is going to get wiped out. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But it does mean you have to find a new way forward in relationship to others in your life that previously on their map, you were their codependent rescuer. You rescued them. You felt for them. You got to find a new way to establish relationship with them, or it really probably won't make it, that relationship. But man, it can take a while. I could go on and on about that. And I do inside the masterclass, but okay. Does the shadow trickster show up? This is Kareen, or Karen. Does the shadow trickster show up with synchronicity until you neutralize it? So let me just sort of give a condensed definition of the shadow trickster and what its function is in your psyche and as a function of synchronicity. The trickster archetype and trickster synchronistic phenomena, which I always talk about in Mercury retrograde things I do for my astrology cycles, because that's really where you see it activate for the collective and then everyone, all of us individually in the collective. But with the trickster's agenda as a part of alchemy is to trick you into the truth. Why would you need to be tricked into the truth? Well, because you wouldn't hear it directly. So or are you just too unconscious? I mean, there's a lot of variables here, but generally I find that most people, by the time they get to a shadow trickster synchronicity, or that's active in their life or their psyche, it's because they really wouldn't hear the whisper or acknowledge a red flag. I have someone in my life, a dear friend of mine, who this weekend was sharing with me this relationship fallout she had. And as I talked to her, of course, the intuitive in me can't help it. I said, you knew from the beginning the red flags were there, but you didn't listen. Why? And she got tricked into a whole heartbreak when it could have been one, like, hey, there's that red flag. Got it. Okay. Now I either make a decision to continue forward with you, knowing that this is who you are and where you're at, or I make a decision not to, because that's not what I want for me, is a relationship with someone who's, I don't know, Don Juan. So if you go forward in a situation where you've already been shown 3 red flags and you don't do anything different, instead you rationalize the red flags away or lie to yourself about them. Well, hello, trickster, because you wouldn't just directly go, okay, this is where you are, man. I'm not in harmony with my potential or my sense of self-connection and self-respect. So I just can't. When you get to a place in yourself of such clarity intuitively and empowerment that you can directly acknowledge red flags as they arrive in your experience and go, okay, red flag noted. And then go, okay, how do I feel about this? What's the guidance here? That would be your next soul prayer. I'm seeing this red flag. Okay, now what? And you might get, hey, wait, give them some time, or give the situation some time, but stay awake. Or you might get, yeah, get the hell out of that nightclub. But you won't get that direct follow-up guidance until you say, that is a red flag. And then once you go, that is a red flag, then now you just opened up for the next level of guidance to come. Yes, it is a red flag. And give this person a chance. They're a messy human being like you. Or bye, moving on. Don't invite that vampire in. So yeah, synchronicity will speak in these guided ways. But if you won't directly listen, it's going to go trickster on you. And that's called also being human, And I'll tell you, as freaking great as I am at reading other people like a book, with myself, it's not always as clear. But like I said in that little segment, I've learned how to work with the trickster because I've done so many readings, and I know the technical phenomena. I know how technically it operates. So I have a technical sense of, all right, here's a trickster. This recently happened to me actually a couple weeks ago. And it wasn't a trickster. It was a red flag that could have become one though. And I immediately saw a red flag and I went, okay, no, I'm pivoting and turning left. And this is where you free up so much more energy. Your alignment with destiny is so much more intact. You speed up time because now you're not in a trickster cycle of working something out, a red flag you wouldn't acknowledge. You can just right through it. So I love these great questions, y'all. Really good. Love it. Oh, good, Karina. I'm glad to hear that. Yes. Robert, what helped the guy that was an alcoholic taking on his family karmic load? Okay, and I've shared that client story many, many times, and I wasn't sure how deep I went into that particular share. So that particular client, and I always have to make up names for these clients because it is Alcoholics Anonymous, right? I don't want to put them on the spot or anything like that. So I'm just going to call this client Tom. So for Tom, I think the first breakthrough was the realization that he was enough, he was okay. I think that just healed him fundamentally in some way to know that, hey, on a soul level, I've agreed to take on this. And that doesn't mean every alcoholic is a bodhisattva or has that contract, by the way. That was just in that particular contract true. But what helped him first was deactivating the shame. Because what was going on with him is he could not get sober. He had tried many, many times. And usually, by the time someone reaches my door and, back when I was doing readings and gets a reading, it's because they've gone everywhere else and they just cannot get traction in transforming their lives. And they haven't met someone that can see what's really going on. That was one of the graces of my skill set, and is the grace of my skill set, is I can see with an incredible sophistication, you as a system. And I just looked at him as a system and I could see the bodhisattva part of his contract. So I shared that with him and we both bawled, and I'm surprised I didn't go into the ugly cry in that clip. And then from there, he began to engage his sober journey from worth, not shame. A lot of people begin their sobriety from shame. Meaning, I'm an F up, so I've got to get sober to be enough because I'm not enough. Now, hey, I want to say this because I think it's important. However you get to sobriety, hallelujah. Even if through shame, let's just keep you alive. But for Tom, he couldn't get to sobriety through shame because it looped him back to addiction. That's always the vulnerability of having a sobriety on the foundation of shame. You are always vulnerable to relapse. I have another client where they went 7 years sober, but then relapsed. And it was the same thing. They relapsed because their sobriety was founded on shame, not worth, not soul esteem, not I'm enough, even as an alcoholic. I'm enough now. If I get sober, yes, I'm enough. If I'm drinking, I'm still enough. This isn't about worth. This is about whether I'm going to relate to myself as deserving of a sober life. I'm so enough, I deserve sobriety, versus I've got to be sober to be enough because I'm such a lowly wretch. Look at me. Rather, sobriety is the gift I give me out of my soul and its esteem and my worthiness. And that's how he got out. And I haven't heard from Tom in 6-7 years probably, but last I heard, and he finally did get sober. That was a client I worked with, I think, back in 2005, 2007. So it's quite a while ago. But that was that particular story. Yes, already enough. Cool. All right. Well, hey, everybody, listen. Once again, a lot going on with timelines in terms of on my website. I hope you'll come join the membership and get in the groove with all of the other members already there that have been there since the beginning. So many of them have. And I hope to see you in there. We, like I said, we're doing a live lesson on Sunday. And you got like 10 lessons to catch up with before you could probably attend that one. You can begin if you want. You'll be a little lost. But the doors close on the 29th. And the Intentional Synchronicity Masterclass is only taught in there. You can't purchase it anywhere else. It was a bonus masterclass that I decided to do in June. And here we are 6 months later, and I'm still doing it. Another thing to keep in mind about my membership, and this is what I want to tell you about my next social life. So on Friday, in 2 days, I'm going to dip into some astrology. Now I'm going to do a little something on the upcoming eclipse. We have a new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius on Saturday. So Friday, I'm going to come in with all sorts of information. And what I love about eclipses, and why I like doing them, and I haven't done one for a while as a social live, is it gives me a chance to kind of check in with you and kind of teach you about the holographic nature of energies right now, how they might be affecting you, and and activating certain things in your own soul contracts, soul agreements, and destiny, and how to work with their energies. So I'm gonna have a lot to say about this new moon eclipse. And furthermore, on Friday, I'm going to tell you how to join me for a little free journey into the Holocampus Astrology of 2022 on December 12th. So I'm going to be doing a little free thing for all of you to join. You won't be able to access the content forever. You'll have like a nice week or 10 days to access it, but it will be free for that long. And all of that is also in my membership. So I will be doing a 4-part dive into the Holocampus Astrology of 2022, which I always do. Now, if you want to check something out, kind of blow your mind, in December of 2019, I did the same thing, and I actually told everyone COVID was coming. I had intuitive impressions of something happening, and I mentioned it to, and I hated that year forecast. I remember doing it and told my assistant, I'm like, I don't even want to do this. It's nothing but bad news. So I felt it in the field. So you can go watch that and listen to me talk about it. It's a little eerie, even for me, and that's how I'm wired, to see me saying that. So the astrology stuff, though, is going to be going on. I'm going to do, and I'll tell you a couple of courses I'm doing in there inside the membership. I'm going to teach a course on spiritual adulthood, how to mystically self-parent. So this is about you creating an inner sense of safety archetypally through mystical forces in you. I'm so jamming on that. And that's going to be taught inside the membership. And then also I'm going to teach something on this issue I've seen with lots of clients. And that is when we get into starving archetypes, like the starving healer, the starving teacher, the starving artist, what that's really about and how to shift out of that. And the main focus will be your mystical prostitute and the virgin archetypes. That's also going to be a course. Those are courses that I'm going to be doing inside the membership in 2022. So I will just join for the year. You're going to get the best deal, $20 a month, and you can just check it out. You can't, just so you are aware, and I'm transparent here, you can't get refunds on canceled, unused time. So if you decide you don't like me in 3 months, it's too bad. So really do make that, and I want to empower you to make the decision that's best for you. If you're feeling tentative or hesitant, just join monthly. You'll pay more, but if you do unsubscribe, let's say you unsubscribe in February, you can't join again until December of 2022 because the doors only open one time, just so you're aware. Hey, this was really fun. I like that I was able to bring something that I've been working on kind of behind closed doors in my membership and just offer it to all of you. A nice couple hours here of some really thought-provoking, I think, paradigm-shattering perspectives. I hope it helps you. I really do. And like I said, this topic I have so much passion for because I think it is such a relevant one. And if I were to give you, which I will do for Holism Astrology 2022, kind of my read on what's ahead. Yeah, we're in a dark night. The world is in a dark night. So, it's just what's true. And if you don't see the synchronicities of that, I don't know what you're looking at. But I will talk about that in terms of archetypal cycles coming up. I'll talk about that also on Friday in the Eclipse Social Live. But I will definitely be talking about that in the Holocompass forecast for 2022. So a lot of great stuff going on. You want to stay in the loop? Make sure you follow me on, Facebook, and then make sure you actually opt to see my posts first. And then on YouTube, just subscribe and then ring that little bell so you get notified every time I do a new video. And honestly, the best thing to do is get on my newsletter because then you'll know ahead of time when I'm doing it, some stuff and what time and all that kind of stuff. And you can always watch on demand if you can't make it live. So, y'all, that was wonderful. Happy O Holidays. See O Holiday sale, 40% off everything on my website. Hello. Up until December 21st. That does exclude the Your Intuitive Edge Premium membership because it's already discounted pretty low. Remember, this is where you will get the Intentional Synchronicity Masterclass inside the membership. Join the membership. Get down with it. Doors close on the 29th of December. And let's just say, I know some of you, we're all kind of in different financial situations. If you're struggling with finances and you really want to do some of this stuff, we do have gift cards on ohada.com. You could have some of your friends or family buy you one and certainly apply that toward whatever you'd like to take, whether that's a course that's discounted or joining the membership. So trying to help you out. I've discounted as much as I can. I got employees to pay, including myself. But so much love for you. I'll be praying for all of you to just benefit from this in all the ways that you can. And I'll be back. I'm going to be doing social lives like a crazy guy over the next couple of weeks. So definitely stay tuned. And I got a podcast that's going to be rocking and coming out in the new year, which I've been waiting to do. I had so many setbacks in 2021. Broke my shoulder. A pet nearly died. My cat did die. I got really sick. It was, come on. So much love for you. Let me see. I had some other diagrams. So I'm going to riff through some diagrams real quick, just to show you kind of some other stuff in the Intentional Synchronicity, that multisyllabic word, masterclass. This was something that I was charting us through in terms of when you tip into intentional synchronicity. It's once you've gone past wounded ego identity consciousness and then more tipped into psychospiritual consciousness, that's kind of the boundary of where you will then be able to access and activate intentional synchronicity. And then I took a look at things like this, the 4 primary expressed aspects of ego identity and how that fits on. This is actually my logo. I designed this, 20 years ago, because this was always a symbol to me that was so powerful. For me, it's the soul incarnating in through those green arrows into the center. And then it's expressing out through ego identity through those 4 arrows, which describe your self-identity, your identity to family, tribe, and your ancestors, and where you source identity from those lines of heritage. Then you also have self-identity in relationship to others. And then you have your self-identity in relationship to race, culture, society, and power structures, and how that plays out in job and career, or calling, by the way, or careers-calling, my favorite. And so I talk about archetypes that cluster up on these points. And when you go through a dark night, it's one of these points, or sometimes it's like pulling the whole table. If you grab one leg, this is where you can start to get more drilled down on what constitutes the dark night. I also look at this, which is the fate point, which is how we get into what I call a fate circuit. And this is where another aspect of looking at how the dark night kicks in and how synchronicity speaks to you. Yeah, there's a lot going on in this. So I'm just saying, come on over to my membership and get into, and so by the way, all my courses in there come with PDF guides because it's such intense content. I have such a holographic mind that you're going to want that PDF guide with exercises and stuff as well. So any other questions? Cosmic Rose, I like your name, on YouTube. All right, listen, I'll see you Friday if you're with me live for the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius. Get on my website, get yourself in the membership, and just really, really awesome to hang out with you. So thank you for joining me, and share this with anyone and everyone that you think it would benefit. And yeah, so much love. Happy holidays once again. Did you guys notice something, by the way? Anything look different behind me? Let's see if you can write it. Does anyone see anything different behind me? Oh, I don't know if you guys do. Anyway, I put Christmas lights up while I was watching myself. It's kind of fun. I wondered if anyone would see it. Anyway, you shouldn't. You should be looking at me. All right, I'll see you guys on the next social live, or hopefully inside my Your Intuitive Edge premium membership. And yeah. All right, stay in touch and see you soon.